terrorism and dry up its funding sources. This came during a meeting for the African Union Bureau of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government on Saturday, chaired by Felix Tshisekedi, president of the DRC, and the current chair of the AU. More details in the following story by Sameh al-Sharif.
In remarks made via video conference during a meeting for the African Union Bureau of Assembly of Heads of State and Government on Saturday, chaired by Felix Tshisekedi, President of DR Congo and current chair of the AU, Cairo said it calls for a clear African strategy to eliminate the danger of terrorism and extremism and dry up its funding sources. Madbouli, speaking on behalf of El-Sisi, said Cairo aims to support African countries by intensifying counter-terrorism training to African cadres and by participating in the United Nations peacekeeping efforts. El-Sisi said this is in addition to Egypt's continued efforts through the Cairo-based Sahel-Saharan Counter-Terrorism Center. He expressed readiness to provide further support on the bilateral level, as well as through the AU mechanisms. He said Cairo, as always, will spare no effort to work with its African brothers to overcome the obstacles facing the continent and restore a steady pace toward achieving the goals and aspirations of African people for a better future. Tshisekedi hailed Cairo's preparedness to enhance the capabilities of African countries, affirming that the continent is in need of all forms of support. According to the statement, El-Sisi voiced appreciation of the efforts made by DR Congo toward achieving the interests of the African continent. Cairo has frequently called for intensifying coordination among African countries over terrorism. Cairo also presided over the AU's Peace and Security Council (PSC) through November and took over the presidency for 2022 of the Committee of Intelligence and Security Services (CISA), an intelligence provider to the AU states from Nigeria. Hosting CISA's 17th conference last month, El-Sisi highlighted the need for intensifying coordination among all relevant continental mechanisms, including CISA, to dry up terrorism resources, besiege its activities, and protect African people from its dangers, as he said.
And to shed more light on that very important issue, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Mr. Ambassador, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Ambassador Shazly?
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Yes, hello, Ambassador Mohamed Shazly. Always a pleasure
Yes.
to have you with us, sir.
The
sir,
pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, how do you view the call for an African strategy in order to eliminate the danger of terrorism?
I have been always of the opinion that combating terrorism needs cooperation, international and regional. You cannot protect one country from terrorism if the whole region is not protected.
Yes.
Therefore, forming regional fronts and international fronts against this scourge that is affecting the whole world is very important to achieve victory in this battle.
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, how would such a strategy actually work and what would be its mandate in your opinion?
First of all, you know, we have taken pragmatic and practical steps in this effect. Last November, Egypt has been elected as the head of the African Council for Intelligence and Security in Africa. And they had a meeting in Cairo, and President El-Sisi hosted this meeting, and I think this is a very important step because combating terrorism depends very strongly on intelligence. in order to abort terrorist operations anywhere. If we collect data, if we know the presence of terrorist organizations, where they are, how are they being financed, how are they moving around, we can abort any terrorist activities before it causes damage and causes destruction. So this, I think, is a very important step. We are speaking now of a strategy against terrorism. I think also this is very important because we do not only need intelligence, we do not only need military and police actions against terrorism. We need media to increase awareness of the dangers of terrorism and protect our youth from being duped into terrorist organizations. We need development because a great recruitment of terrorists comes from the desolate young people who don't have a job, who don't have a future. So if you give them a job and if you give them a future, they will not head to this direction. It is a package deal where every organ of society has to participate actively.
Yes. Mr. Ambassador, how actually terrorism and economic hardship intertwined?
As I said before, you know, if you have poverty, if you have illiteracy and ignorance, if you have racist thought, tribal thought, religious extremism, all of these are the soil that breeds terrorism. In many African countries, if you look at, for instance, at Somalia, where you have the Shabab organization, if you look to Mali, where you have the Boko Haram, all of the recruits are coming of destitute and poor people who have no other source of income rather than to participate in terrorist activities. So it is very important, you know, we have had, and I think it was Egypt who has called upon it, the efforts to rebuild conflicts, destroyed countries after conflicts, and to rehabilitate. I think this is a very important issue.
Indeed.
If you have a country that is decimated and destroyed by violence, look at Libya, for instance. After, you know, what happened in Libya and after the downfall of the regime, everybody is destroying their country rather than rebuilding the country. This is a very important issue, I think.
Indeed. Mr. Ambassador, actually, how would you describe here the role of the African Union in formulating actually joint action against the common threats to the African continent?
Africa is an area that is suffers more than I think any other place from terrorism. As I said before, you have terrorists in Somalia, the Shabab group, and you have terrorists in the Sahel and the Sahara region, the Boko Haram. It is ripe with conflict and tribal and racial wars. It is very important to consolidate our efforts in order to stop the real source of terrorism. And in addition to that, there are the instigators, foreign powers who are providing shelter for terrorists, providing media to the terrorists, propaganda, providing arms, and you have the matter of mercenaries.
Yes.
All of these are very critical issues that we have to face, and we have to face together as a united front and as a united continent.
Indeed. Ambassador Mohamed Shazly, former Assistant Foreign Minister, always a pleasure to have you with us, sir, and to listen to your very precious input. And moving on with our program and still with the stories from Africa, Cairo said it calls for an African strategy to eliminate the danger of terrorism and extremism, which was, of course, discussed in that report and our conversation with Ambassador Mohamed Shazly. But now the U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa will be visiting Saudi Arabia, Sudan and Ethiopia next week. The U.S. State Department said the tour aims for broadening the consultation